out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, Loud as a Whisper. Yeah, sounds like a 90s song or album or something. Yes, Loud as a Whisper. Speaking of other things going on, the Mothership from IABD. It's all been done. Radio Hour this weekend, 5th anniversary, July 9th. Online, you know that's how we're doing it these days, streaming. Check it out. It's a special episode. The top-notch Tangler takes on all of her enemies are coming back. It's a rogues gallery, I think they used to call that. So very special episode. Top-notch Tangler, July 9th. Check it out. It's all been done. Radio Hour. Check it out. It's online, and it's very sharp. I can't say the same for Loud as a Whisper, but you're here to talk about it anyway on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Regular crew is here.
This is Steven.
Can't talk eating.
That was Keith. And this is Jimmy-Jerome.
Being very relatable.
And Keith, we also have Marianne on the podcast, but she's going to talk as loud as a whisper. She's going to play.
I would say a lot quieter than a whisper, actually.
She's going to be Riva and not say a word. Actually, Marianne's not on the podcast, but you can pretend that she's here in spirit. Howie Seago, who is best known for Beyond Silence, the movie, and then this is what he's second best known for. He's only got 7 credits. So he is deaf in real life.
Okay.
So, first impressions of Loud as a Whisper.
I thought it was interesting. It really veered into let me find my note. It veered into a very special episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation territory. But I thought there were some interesting aspects despite that. So I thought it was okay overall.
Well,
Keith?
I think the spoiler is that I heard before we started was that I probably like this a lot more than you, and probably both of you, it seems. Maybe some of the niche interest of it rubbed off on me from Marianne. Certainly, it makes me tune in a little bit more carefully to some of the nuances of what they're doing. I thought that certainly that Howie Seago, was it?
Yes,
did a great job. Reminded me of one of Marianne's performances, although she's not deaf, obviously, but
she is fluent in ASL, correct?
More or less. And I remember. Well, Steven saw this performance as well when she was helping with the staged reading, and she was playing a deaf character in a very similar fashion. So, well, I mean, not at first in the episode, which I thought was also pretty intriguing. But I guess I'm getting into specifics now, so I'll just wait.
My first impression is that I was totally bored, kept tuning out, and felt like I wasn't even paying that good attention to the show because I was bored and tuned out. So not a strong feeling about it. 2 worlds are at war. They demand the mediator, and they only want one mediator, and that is Riva, who we've already touched on, played by Howie Seago.
Give me
Riva. And Riva has never ever failed at negotiating. Flawless record. In fact, he helped the Klingons figure out what peace was so that they could work with the Federation. Super ambassador mediator.
On
that's
that
where we
subject,
start.
I wrote down that they teased us again with some sort of Klingon anecdote, just with them having to draw something out of Worf. And of course, they use that to just kind of be vague and drop it quickly.
There's a lot of planet-on-planet issues. I wrote down in the first, man, there's so many times where one planet hates the other planet. And then I realized that's pretty much the entire story of Earth, pretty much, is this country hates this country or whatever, or this set of countries hates this set of countries. So it actually makes total sense that every other week they're running into this issue.
Yeah, but this war was, between 4 people that all looked pretty much the same?
Yeah.
In one spot?
Yeah.
And that was the whole war?
They were the same system, right? But they were...
That's what I got the impression. They were 2 different planets in the same system, but they were both on the one planet in an area that didn't look civilized at all.
I thought that maybe they were both from the same planet, both factions, but who knows?
It's racist, Jimmy, but I couldn't tell them apart either.
Their clothing was different.
That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, none of the warriors, in my opinion, stood out. I mean, in the cast list, they're credited as Warrior Number 1, Warrior Number 2. You know?
Yeah, and they're really just a device. We really don't get to know any of them, or really get to know any of those, what their real deal is or anything. And there's that right off the bat. There's that that graphic of that system that graphic of that system that Picard's looking at, and I actually learned what that is recently. It's an orrery, which is something that shows the solar system and where all the planets are and moving. And that's but that's obviously a much better 24th century version of it. But I thought that looked actually cool. I was surprised how cool that looked. And maybe it's just because I knew the term for it. But
I agree. I thought that effect was my favorite part of the whole episode, I think.
And it made me think of something else. And I guess I never really thought about it with TOS as much, because I feel like Kirk was a smart guy, but he didn't need to know the science because Spock and everyone else did. And I don't know if a captain needs to be. They need to have fundamental understandings of science and stuff. But it just made me think, do you have to be some kind of a scientist to some extent to be a captain in Starfleet in the 23rd?
The explanation I think I'm pulling more from the novels than from the show itself is command track training. You kind of have to know a bit about all the departments.
Makes sense.
I would think that, I've whenever I see something on TV about something fictional about a pilot doing something, they always seem to have more mechanical knowledge than you would expect to have to just to drive something. Like, they have to understand more about planes than you would have to understand about, like, say, a car.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I got the same sort of impression for, I guess, certain areas of military service and certain. Yeah.
And of course, Natasha Yar had to not only be a good security chief, but know how to run the transporter better than anyone on the ship.
Of course, sure. Wait, who are you talking about?
We had O'Brien back. He's still not named. It's just the transporter chief. But I was very excited to see him.
It's funny. I just stared at him the whole time, and he just stared at everyone talking. He didn't really react to them. He was listening. He was actively listening, but he didn't get to really interact. But yeah, as soon as I saw him, I was just like a laser beam focused on him.
Yeah, I think it's that oversized viewpoint, because we know he'll become such a prominent character and then be a lead on Deep Space Nine, that when you see him in these brief appearances, like when we were first watching the show in the 80s, we would have barely paid attention to him. And now we're like, oh, it's O'Brien. We can't wait for him to speak some more and actually get a name and personality.
Well, I took a lot of notes on this one, actually, since I guess I paid attention and liked it.
Yeah, I have a lot. Actually, I have a lot.
In the beginning,
I've got 10 total.
My first note was that this is the Herman's Head inside out sci-fi that I've wanted. Just because I don't know, the concept kind of took me aback. Just the idea of having those three people linked in with them and even assigning them those kinds of emotional roles, I thought was interesting for the time period, certainly.
I thought that was an interesting conceit, to have the three people expressing different parts of his personality, but I was almost immediately taken out of it by the fact that Picard acted like he'd never met a deaf person before and started speaking directly to the translators and like handling it really poorly. And I just felt like, come on, dude, you're knowledgeable, you've been around, you should know better than that in the 24th century.
Well, my thought was kind of like we talked about before, they cured the common cold, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured they would have cured deafness. So my thought was, this guy is that unique that he is the only deaf guy that Picard's ever met.
Yeah, they made it actually pretty clear as you go through the episode that this is something uniquely hereditary to his royal line. The doctor explained why she couldn't actually fix it, which implied that there have been other cases where she probably could have done it.
Well, I think they were trying to communicate that with that really awkward Geordi scene where she was offering him surgery. And that felt very odd to me.
And also, the fact that Data had to kind of dig into the data banks and find out how to learn sign language, it seemed like something that was more archaic than just, the captain being made to look foolish. I think I thought that his statement immediately afterward was fairly eloquent. So
maybe that was just my current sensibilities offended by it rather than, because you make a good point. if they really have cured deafness at this point. And honestly, they're working on that now, and I feel like I've read about in the newspapers they've made great strides on that recently of helping deaf people hear. But then there's also the backlash from the deaf community, certain segments of the deaf community that don't see deafness as a disability. Same with a segment of the blind community. And so I guess it just felt very tone deaf to me the way they handled the character's inability to hear. And then also, again, that scene with Geordi was super cringy to me, where Pulaski was talking to him about the surgery and what she might be able to do for him. And we all know Geordi eventually does get some type of artificial eye that replaces the visor, but it's nothing like a human eye. And so that scene was, I don't know.
Why do you think it was super cringy?
I just felt the way it was handled. Again, I think part of it's not even taking into account that maybe he doesn't see it as a disability, not taking into account. I mean, I guess she did leave it up to him and his feelings for it, but it was, to me, and maybe I'm reading more into it than was actually shown, but I saw it as her judging him for keeping the visor and trying to convince him, like, hey, let's do this other thing. And if he doesn't want to do the other thing, he doesn't have to do the other thing. It
wasn't just that it was, she also mentioned that it's causing him pain.
The actual screws on the side of his head's cause him pain. Well, the actor was in pain from the screws on the side of his head, sorry. But yeah, I don't know.
He's talked about wanting to be able to see regularly, or whatever regular is, but be able to see without him in previous episodes, though, right?
Yes.
In The Naked Now, I think, and maybe one or two other ones. Now, I'm worried I got real sleepy and missed it, but she talks to him, but they never come back to it in this episode, right?
That's right. I think they're kind of using that for an extended kind of, they're getting into some characterization for him.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's the second film. He just shows up and he's not wearing the visor anymore. So we've got a long wait for that.
Okay, because I thought, did I really snap out? Did I nod off for 2 solid minutes and they explain that entire thing and then right back where I fell asleep? But okay, that makes me feel better. Slightly. Speaking of archaic things, they use the term mother hen in this episode.
Yes.
Is that something do we think is going to make it to the 24th century?
I hope not.
I mean, chickens probably will, so maybe they will. But, I mean, I think chickens will. Chicken will still be delicious.
Well, you could just replicate it. So if you have a chicken, it's because it's for pleasure that you want a chicken, not because you need a chicken.
Right before they beam down, I think as Picard says, well, it's just a simple ceremonial greeting, which essentially is just saying, what he's pretty much saying is, this is going to get botched up. You know, it's never a simple ceremonial greeting. They should know it's never a simple, we're going to give medical exams on this planet and then move on to the next planet. That never happens. Well, I guess it does. We just never see it.
They started out with that heavy-handed, too, like, we're not going to interfere. We've been instructed no interference. Oh, we're just going to go down for that ceremony. And Riker even says, and again, this is commentary on America, United States of America, just calling it America is very U.S.-centric, but very commentary on the U.S., our job is not to police the galaxy. You can't tell me that's not immediately making you think it's not the United States' job to police the world.
Yeah, yep. I think that's fair, especially in the context of 1988. Yeah, very much. Or really in the context of 2020, I guess, too.
Yeah. I mean, I flash back to 2003, but yeah, that's a broad ranging.
Yep. I think I've thought this before. Maybe I've never said. Maybe I have said this. Troy could never be on. She could never be a guest on To Tell the Truth, because she would always know when you're lying, right? Unless you're George Costanza, I mean, she would always be able to. That's got to make relationships tough when you can't. Yeah. When you can't lie to your girlfriend, it's got to make a relationship tough.
Well, and Riker and Troy, I mean, I know we haven't read Imzadi yet, which we will be reading and releasing as a special episode, but they really get in each other's head. And I think Deanna is only half Betazoid, so she only has empathic feelings, but still somebody she's close to, she can really get in their head. And if you're full Beta Z, you can read everybody's thoughts all the time, and that's just, try dealing with Loxana Troy.
That's probably what that Mel Gibson movie was about. What women want, right? Ooh. Was he a full Betazoid?
He was a full Betazoid. Okay. Yep. Yeah, he was.
That makes me want to see it slightly more.
I I saw it, and there was no Star Trek in it.
Ah, forget it. So we were talking a little bit. I'm kind of going back a little bit. We were talking about, Riva, and they like he said, they went to great lengths to be like, well, no, he just never, they couldn't fix it because he just never had the gene for hearing. I don't know if is that a thing, a gene for hearing.
Maybe with his people, he was a human.
Yeah, because that was my next note. Was like, well, why is he humanoid? And then I was like, wait a minute, is a gene for hearing an actual thing?
Well, they were saying something about it being actually specific to his royal line, his family.
Oh, that's right.
There was something about, I can't remember the exact word they were using, but the implication was that there was something in the brain that was missing that allowed auditory connections to even happen.
Oh,
which was unusual even for his planet.
I will mention this episode was written by Jacqueline Zambrano, who is a television writer and producer. 18 writing credits, 18 shows worked on. And in terms of Star Trek, this was the only episode of Star Trek that Jacqueline wrote. Writer for Gabriel's Fire, Pensacola Wings of Gold, Under Suspicion, The Big Easy. All television shows.
Interesting.
And it was directed by Larry Shaw.
So when they were first meeting Riva, I just noted that I was very amused by the way that they kind of went down the line, and you're kind of like, what the hell is he doing? Those reactions. And when he's going through and introducing the chorus individually, like their roles, I just love that little shot of Passion explaining that he's responsible for lust and kind of doing that. Everyone kind of glances at Deanna until she gets a little uncomfortable. So
we had Warrior Adonis, who was played by Leo Damien, who is best known for Ghosts Can't Do It and The Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh.
Only 6 acting credits. We also had Scholar Artist, played by Randy Oglesby, who was credited as Thomas Oglesby. He's got a lot more credits. He was in Pearl Harbor, the movie, Patch Adams, Nothing to Lose, Idle Hands. So lots of different stuff here. In terms of Star Trek, I'm jumping back real quick to see if he's got any other Star Trek credits. I don't see any. I don't think. Yeah, nothing else Next Gen. If I missed... Oh, does have a one-episode part in Voyager and 2 separate one-episode parts in Deep Space Nine, so they'll use them again. And then the third one, Harmony Balance, was played by Marnie Moseman, who married John Delancey, who plays Q. She married him in 1984, so she was already his wife at the time of this role, and she is best known for the movie What Women Want, to bring it all back around.
Yeah, really?
She is. She plays Woman at Lunch Counter.
That's outstanding.
She's second best known for Princess Mononoke, Additional Voices.
That's a big movie.
Just Additional Voices English version. But still, I didn't even realize, because I saw John Delancey speak in person and he was talking about his wife. I didn't even realize that's who he was talking about, this woman here.
I wrote, when they were introducing the 3 people that help him, I wrote Greek chorus.
Yeah.
But I wrote Greek chorus, and then I think they said it later, Greek chorus from a terrible play. Just based on the intros, I'm like, I have read this play so many times, and it's always terrible. There are versions of that are good. Kit Morris, a friend of mine, former Mad Labber, wrote a really good play. And then the movie Inside Out was a similar thing to me, of a cool Greek chorus. And I wrote that then. But then later, I actually ended up liking the way those interpreters work. I think I like the dynamic. I thought it made it a lot more interesting in a lot of ways. So they won me over. But at first I was like, what kind of jive is this? I've read this play. It's going to suck. But I thought it was interesting. Can you elaborate
on some of the bad examples of choruses or why you don't like them or what happens?
Yeah, not necessarily in a movie because Mighty Aphrodite has a little Greek chorus and it's really good. There's a lot of plays that start with, well, this person represents this aspect of the person, and this character aspect exemplifies truth and beauty or whatever, and this person exemplifies, and they start. That's even in the character descriptions, and then the characters come on and they're just so rote, for lack of a better term, and just don't tell me what you are, just do it. Just show, show don't tell. As soon as you start telling me what you're supposed to be, and I'm like, I don't know if I care. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. I think it was last week with the outrageous Okana. But I think he kind of redeemed himself, and I thought these guys did too. I thought they ended up exemplifying, I think, kind of what they talked about. But even beyond that, I think they were much more interesting than they were pigeonholed at the very beginning. And unfortunately, they don't last the whole episode. So.
No, wow. So setting aside the choice to kill them halfway through, the effect of the laser pistol and how it destroyed them, I did not like it.
Interesting.
I just wrote, damn. I just thought, wow. I mean, I didn't see that coming. But I'm kind of with you, Jim. Yeah, I didn't care for it either. I mean, I didn't care for the moment because I suddenly like, I like these people. I just written down how much I like these people, and then they killed them. So I did feel the loss, but I didn't care for the manner in which it happened necessarily either.
What I eventually wrote about that confused me, or that I thought was obviously, I guess for efficiency's sake, that they were all killed with one shot.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Yeah, of course that has him spinning off, and it sets up the second half of the episode. So I see the plot point. I'm just talking about purely from a visual aspect. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we get to that, though, they mention when they introduced Riva that he's never failed, which to me immediately made me think, okay, so he's never taken on any challenging situations, because everybody fails. So to me, it's like, oh, he only takes the easiest jobs out there. That's why he's got a perfect record. It's like the lawyer with the perfect record, you know? You only take the sure things, and you decline the ones that are going to spoil your perfect record.
That's fair. Also, we learned 2 weeks ago from Pulaski that, if you always win, you never learn anything.
True.
You never lose. So,
true.
How great can Riva be?
He's certainly never tried to negotiate the Israel and Palestine conflict, which I'm sure is still a conflict in the 24th century.
I agree.
I also thought it was very weird that Worf hated him, or seemed to hate him, because he made peace with the Klingons and the humans. Am I reading that wrong? That's what it felt to me like, because Worf was very anxious about him, and I saw it as like negative behavior.
Yeah, it didn't seem like, I don't know how to act around him. It seemed aggressive to me, and I never I felt like they never really justified it.
No,
maybe got around to it. But
that's another one of those things that was mentioned before, that tease where I think that was just another device to write their way out of not having to be too specific about whatever went on. Just him kind of bristling, like, I'm vaguely uncomfortable about it. Okay, don't want to talk about it. Okay.
So we get to Data learning the language is to make up for the interpreters being gone. I mean, I didn't hate that aspect. I mean, that's the one crew person that could easily do it. I feel like it could have also just as easily gone to Troy and just had her reading his emotions and speaking for him. But I guess with Data, it's a little more exacting.
One thing I forgot to mention back there when we were talking about the hereditary aspect, I thought you guys would have appreciated that they were doing the thing with more actual fictional Star Trek history.
I noted the Layrons of Malchus 9, and then I wrote yes.
I heard Thunbaus 5 for the limbless.
Yeah.
Royal line.
I like that. I like that I like those references.
All right. So for Data, when we were watching this, when I was watching for the second time through, Marianne wondered why Data wouldn't just download it. And I actually thought that through for a moment. It's because they wouldn't really have physical media on the ship, or they wouldn't really need it for those kinds of purposes, because people could just, wherever they are, go to a terminal and just load up whatever. And Data wouldn't have the same port for to just plug into a computer in a random place. So he just speeds through things visually. He just has to use the human interface for it.
And I guess that goes to your point of there just aren't deaf people around in the 24th century, that Data doesn't already have that loaded.
Oh, yeah.
With all the knowledge he does have loaded. So what did you think of the Troy Riva love story?
I liked it because she seemed into it.
She did.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it seemed a little... she might be a little off-put, but it's they seem to have a genuine reason to have a connection, and I liked that part of it.
Yeah, I thought, I use this term, we use this term right off the bat, but yeah, it felt like, I think for her, it was so relatable that she's like, yeah, we kind of do the same thing, and she could, and I thought there were times where it was hard for him to to do what we call acting, what anyone calls acting, because he can't speak. So he had those people speaking for him, and he just has to use his face. And I thought sometimes it was difficult, but I thought sometimes he overdid it. But I think some of that could be these people don't know how to. If I don't kind of force a little bit, they won't know. But I thought other times he was really subtle with it, which I thought was really good. And I thought that was even more with the scenes with her. But yeah, I liked it. I liked those two actually as well.
Maybe I need to watch this again because I just don't remember him being very good. And like I said, I kept feeling like I was zoning out and not paying attention. So maybe I need to watch it again.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, there were a couple of times when that happened to me, and I just had to back up and listen. It was like, oh, then I heard this detail that was like I completely missed it.
And I kind of feel like that does say something about the episode that we were tuning out, but.
Well, no, that says something more about me, I think, because I'd always do that anyway. If I get too distracted with social media or whatever else I'm doing.
No, I don't, and I kept tuning out on this, which is probably why I came across thinking this is just boring.
And I do think, Jimmy, like I said early on, I think there are some aspects that are this is a very special episode of Trek.
Yes.
So you could feel that too, where it's like, we know we're never going to see Riva again. We don't, right. I'm pretty sure, right? Which is a bummer. But I thought he'd be much more interesting. I think there's more layers to him they could have gone to. But I wrote down he's the 24th century's most interesting man just because of the beard and that hair. It was something. I thought it was astounding. So that alone might have made it work. Also, actually, while I'm at it, I like the hand to the chest thing they were doing. I thought that was a cool thing, but I don't know how it works. Like I was waiting for him to do it to Troy. See how that worked out. Because I mean, there's obviously you can go very high on the chest and still be near the heart without being inappropriate.
Sure.
But that I did not zone out during that part of the episode either. But I thought it did kind of draw you in. I thought some of his stuff, but I do think, like I said, there were times, Jimmy, where I thought he was overdoing it. And like I said, I can retcon it that, well, he's doing that because people don't listen to him. Actually, speaking of which, just one more quick note, and I'll give ground here a little bit. There's the point where Picard's yelling at him right in his face, and all I wrote down on all caps, "Do you speak English?" Doing that is not helping Picard. You should have at least figured that. And that was at the beginning. That was like half an hour in, I think. So he should have figured it out by then. But anyway.
I thought the Troy-Riva relationship had the same fault a lot of these one-hour shows have with one-off guest stars, in that they felt too serious about each other too fast.
Oh, yeah.
I do like that Troy's getting more story this season, though. I think I wasn't really enjoying her in the first season, and I think it was because they didn't give her anything interesting to do. And when they've given her interesting things this season, I've enjoyed it. So
yeah, I thought this was a really good use of her, actually. But
yeah, I agree with that. In the overall, in general. I do want to comment real quick, and I guess I should have done this when we were talking about the aliens and how I didn't really care for the whole way they presented it. The planet set was awful. Just plain awful. I mean, not any worse than a lot of next-gen planet sets, but this was a bad one.
I had a kind of a joke about that. This really involves some of the details about what was going on there. So the first time they got down there, Riva's talking about the way that they wants things set up. This table over here with that resemble. He's asking Geordi up on the ship to replicate this. The table that resembles the natural rock, the indigenous rock. And still the people just kind of show up before anything's set up anyway. And then the incident happens. When they come back down the last time, everything's already set up for them again. Or everything has been set up for them, finally, for the summit. And my note was, this could have all been avoided if the tables had been set up sooner.
Not wrong.
Yep, they were like, where's my table? I'm not going to do this. Zap.
Did you think Riva? I did not feel like Riva convincingly took me through the range of emotions where he would decide to go back and negotiate after his anger at losing his chorus.
I'm sorry, you didn't think he didn't think he took it seriously enough, is what you're saying?
I didn't think it was convincingly portrayed the emotional arc of taking him to where he didn't want to go back. Which, first of all, Flaw is supposed to be a master negotiator, and he's going to let that turn him off. I know he loves them, and I know he's had a flawless thing, and maybe this goes back to the fact that he's never lost, which I thought was dumb. But it just felt like he gave up too quickly, and then it felt like he changed his mind and went back too easily. To me.
I thought so too. I agree with that.
Maybe. I guess I didn't really think it through in that way.
I think that arc is an interesting arc, and so I was frustrated that it was squandered so trivially.
I feel like that's another one of those casualties of the 1 hour format, though. But
certainly part of it. I think you would have had to kill the chorus a lot quicker and discard some of the side stuff to really focus on that to do it justice.
What I was really hoping for them to get across, and he sort of said that once Data was able to explain what he wanted to say in detail, is that should have been like killing a part of his body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, ripping his ears off or something.
Yeah, I think I just, and maybe it's because I was so upset about the chorus being eliminated that I bought being like, I don't want to do this anymore. The hard part was the gymnastics to get back into why he was going to do it. I mean, if he had this moment of, this is what I do, I'm Riva, I'm the greatest, or whatever, or I'm going to do it for them, they would have wanted me to do it. I would have believed that more than the gymnastics he ended up going through, I think.
Yep.
But now I'm talking about the show I wanted to see, not the one I saw.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
If only there were a segment on the show that would work for something like that, like
Can we call it alternate episode?
I guess.
That's a great idea.
Or should we call it fashion?
Add that one to my list of alternative episodes.
So what was your alternate episode? Just that they did...
Yeah, he does it for his deceased chorus, because they don't even have a funeral or anything for him, because he's got to get to work, I guess. So, I mean... I don't think, right? They weren't like, well, here's when we're gonna have the ceremony for these.
Yeah,
things.
no.
They don't.
Nope.
You don't hear about them contacting their next of kin or any of that kind of stuff. It's just, and I think that's the hard part is like they ended up treating it like a plot device. I might have been more upset than anyone on the ship about it. But
my alternate episode is the sitcom version of Riva and his Greek chorus with Troy filling in as a stereotypical wife that. Kowtows to his career.
Oh, yeah.
And then going around the galaxy and getting into zany misunderstandings.
I had two other alternate episodes. One was Whisper to Scream, which is just an allusion to the title of the episode, but also a Icicle Works song from the 80s. And then I also thought my other alternate episode would be an episode of the WB sitcom Riva, which falls into exciting adventures.
Starring Reva McEntire?
Reva McEntire, and this guy, and he's a country musician, either in spite of or because of the fact that he can't hear what he's playing.
So Beethoven.
Exactly. I hope we don't lose all our country music fans.
You want to do your fashion segment?
Yeah, fashion.
Oh, by the way, we lost our country music fans when we lambasted Sunny last season. Just saying. Fashion. I mean, we had the chorus and we had the aliens.
That's right. I like Sonny, but yeah, I know we roasted him. I just had a couple of fashion notes. Obviously, like I said, the beard and that hair. I don't wear a beard, but I was still envious of the beard and the hair. It was something. Is it just me, and maybe it's the HD, or maybe it's the season, or maybe I'm just paying closer attention? I feel like Troy's lipstick is standing out more this season. Like I like the whatever color she's using for her makeup. It just seems more striking than it did in the first season.
No,
it just made her look better overall. Costume, hair, makeup, all of it.
She does look great. Don't get me wrong.
Marianne specifically mentioned her lipstick.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was I didn't even notice, and she said, "Did she just change her lipstick or something?" Like maybe during the scene or between the scene.
I guess I'll have to pay more attention in the weeks to come. My final note is about Miss Mosselman. Is that what her name is? The
Marty Mosselman, yeah.
Marty Mosselman, yeah. I loved her dress. I thought it was sneakily sexy, for lack of a better term, because it wasn't a, and I know Bill Teese isn't necessarily working on this season, but I thought it was one of those that doesn't show a lot of skin, but it's still super sexy. I thought it was really cool.
Hers was the one that definitely felt like the Greek chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one with the hat looked like a futuristic butcher, and the other one looked like a futuristic soldier. But yeah, she evoked the Greek chorus. I agree with you. I like the look of Riva with the jacket and the white, and I like the white that tied them all together and being understated and not distracting from what he was doing. I think there was a lot of thought that went into the costumes of them, as opposed to the aliens that I just did it. I thought they just grabbed whatever alien outfits they had off the rack and tossed them on.
Yeah. It's like those guys were next door shooting some other crappy sci-fi movie, and
right,
they're like, that'll do.
My last note: I really liked Picard thanking Troy at the end.
I thought that was a real nice scene too. I wrote that too. I thought that might have been the best scene of the episode. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
They do a good job of this is to reference to modern comedies, but kind of like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec do a really good job of this, and The Office for that matter, of, the episode's completely zany, but character development continues. And then at the very end, they have this short little scene that gets your heartstrings or whatever, gets you emotionally involved again, so you can get back to laughing the next week. And I thought this felt that way. It's like, we had all these kind of high emotions during it, but I thought that little scene at the end scored the most to me.
Yeah.
I noted that, Marianne confirmed that what Riva was using was essentially ASL, American Sign Language, which, if you think it through too much, I don't know why he would be using, American English.
Data explaining the thing to Picard where he actually went through sign by sign and just kept repeating himself was awful. What a time waster. That part of the episode could have been better spent.
I thought the very top of the show, it opens with Pulaski and I think it's Riker on the bridge, and they're just sitting there and they're turned towards each other, but they're not talking. They're just staring at each other for a good 2 to 3 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And so it wasn't like, oh, we come up on the bridge and everyone's going about their business. It's just two people. It's just a bunch of people sitting there waiting for them to say action. It was just really weird. It was bad editing, I guess, at the end of the day.
Well, sometimes you get bored on the bridge and you have to have staring contests.
I was going to say, or maybe that's something that happens all the time. Pulaski and Riker just stare at each other and can you read my mind? No, can you read mine? What am I thinking of?
Nonverbal seduction.
Well, maybe it had to be a precise cut for the commercials and timing and so forth. They just pad it with a little,
Keith, you probably noted this. They did Warp 8 again this episode.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah. This is... Yeah, I don't know if this is a Trek thing, but they said we're blind as a stump.
Oh, yeah. Geordi said that.
Is that a common phrase?
I mean, stumps are blind, though.
They are, yeah. I can't argue that.
Maybe it becomes more common in the 24th century. That's just slang, phraseology.
Where did the phrase deaf as a post come from?
I don't know.
I feel like they're all from the same family.
I guess it would be similar.
Yeah.
Sure.
Interesting. Yeah, anytime you had a disability, they compared you to a block of wood, apparently.
Blind as a pillow.
This is one more interpreting note about the interpreting. I thought there was a scene where it's Troy and she's like, oh, can he leave? And he's like, well, not really. And it reminded me of, and I just saw this recently, There Will Be Blood, where Dana Day-Lewis's character is like, does this guy have to be here, your interpreter? Because he's not only does he want to talk to his son alone, but he thinks the guy has undue influence. And I felt like, I don't know if that's where Troy was going. She just wanted privacy, but it just reminded me of that. So I thought that was interesting. And then I think I only have one more note, and it's, even in the 24th century, there are lone gunmen. Because at the end, they're like, oh, you know what? Turns out it was just him. He was acting alone. That's how apparently in the future, that's how governments explain away giant conspiracy theories as well. Is they just say, well, he was acting out. There was nobody supporting him. It wasn't the mafia or the other, if I could remember the name of the planet. It wasn't some other faction on that planet that they wanted the peace problems to go askew. So that's all I got.
Well, since you mention it, it's kind of funny, the whole thing about does he have to be here, the interpreter? Thinking back, it seems more to me sort of like Victorian flirting, which is kind of charming in a way.
Yeah.
The idea of can you excuse the chambermaid or whatever, and let's get to it.
Divust.
Any other
That's
notes?
That's it.
I do have one last sort of anecdote. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I used to work in tech support, well, various points, and help desk for DSL setup. So phone support, people had to call in. And if you do that for long enough, you'll get TTY calls. Essentially, you have a translator who is communicating with the deaf person remotely, and that person is, looking at a terminal and then reading to you over the phone what the person is saying. So that was my first exposure to the idea of talking directly to the deaf person through a translator, but over a phone, which was challenging sometimes, as you might imagine.
Well, let's do our rankings then. How annoying was Wesley in this episode?
I'm at a 1.
Yeah, 1's the lowest, right?
Yeah.
I gave him a -1. I actually really liked this episode.
Yeah, he was just he stuck to business. He was just like, "Yep, I'll do that. It's done."
Well, we'll keep him at a 1, and this is only the second time in the series he hit 1. The first one being Skin of Evil, where somebody died, but I can't remember who. Who was your annoyance in this episode, Steven?
Mine was Lee Harvey Spaceman.
You beat me to it again. I don't know. It's well, not the joke, but
Right.
that's the first person who jumped in my mind, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the gunman too, because that was just made no sense on every level. Keith, are you making it unanimous?
Yeah.
Again, I liked the surprise of that. I was like, oh my God. But then I was like, oh, then the episode really didn't go. It didn't go anywhere. I think it would have been much more interesting if it's this guy. He's amazing. He makes the piece and he's sweeping Troy off her feet with this chorus of people and, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, this is another alternate episode. But yeah, I thought that would have been a lot more interesting. But that's why I hate Lee Harvey Spaceman. And I think he acted low.
Who was your crush? Right now, Steven and I have Terry Hatcher from the last episode.
Yeah,
does she get bumped out?
I liked Mossiman, but I'm going to stick with Terry Hatcher.
Okay. John Delancey will be happy that you're not trying to steal his wife. I'm going to stick with Terry Hatcher as well. Keith, you have the other woman from that episode.
Who I've already forgotten, but this the chorus woman, is that John Delancey's wife?
Yes.
Well, yes, that definitely. That was I was just something very impressive, just the bearing, the voice. As Steven mentioned, just even the way that the outfit looked without it being too, Thies-like or Tease-like, whatever. Tesian. Yeah.
Well, then John Delancey will probably kick your butt now. That's okay. Ranking the episode. I'm going to start at the bottom because there's only 4 episodes anyway.
Right.
The current bottom is Where Silence Has Lease. I know what I would say, but you two, do you like this better or worse than Where Silence Has Lease?
Which one was Where Silence Has Lease? Damn it.
They get trapped in the hole in space.
Better than that. I say definitely better than that concept alone, but
I know I did not like that episode. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to go with Keith on this.
Okay, I would have put it below, but this is a democracy.
It is.
The one above that is the outrageous Okana.
That's tough.
I like that more.
Me too, obviously.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
Actually, this one, no. So Keith's in agreement?
I'd put it above, but I mean, I don't feel the need to fight that hard for it. So.
Okay. Well, that'll be the consensus. Steven's spot is the consensus spot because Keith wants to go higher. I want to go lower, and we're going to make a great. Just curious, Keith, would you, above the outrageous Okana as the child, would you put it above the child?
Wow. Now we're coming down to recency bias because I can't remember what all went on in the child other than the child, of course.
Sure.
And it was an interesting kind of twist ending for the godlike being.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There's just something about the way that. No. I feel like this had less going on in it. There were some interesting concepts that came up in it for me, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's only a few episodes, so
right.
You would have put it just one above. I would have put it just one below. So we're good where we are then. Next week, we are going to be watching the Schizoid Man.
Schizoid.
Schizoid? Is that how you... I don't know how to say
Yeah,
things.
like a schizophrenic.
Yeah, I mispronounce
You're like
things.
schizoid, man.
In that episode, a dying antisocial scientist unintentionally comes upon the perfect vessel in which to preserve his intellect and arrogant personality. Data, which spoils the shocking twist! Obviously not if you've seen it, but I will go rewatch it like everybody else over the next week, and then we're going to talk about it. Until then, live long.
Be careful when you're settling interplanetary disputes in process.
If you're a Greek chorus, stay 6 feet apart. Then you won't all get killed in one shot.
Yep. If they'd been social distancing, they would have been fine.
Yeah.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?